and thanks for joining us on Relational Practice, a social work podcast. I'm Dr. Jodie Park.
I'm Mackey, and we're both private practice social workers here in New South Wales, Australia, working in the fields of child protection, out-of-home care and trauma. And today we are both on beautiful Darrell country.
We are. Thank you for listening. We would love for you to subscribe, rate and review our podcast and connect with us on Facebook, Instagram and via our new YouTube page. We'll be adding content and videos to all of the platforms regularly. And as always, please send us any practice stories, questions or comments to relationalpractice01@gmail.com.
How you going?
Good. How are you?
Great.
This is really our first recording for 2026. Even though we put an episode up, we recorded it last year.
Yeah, it feels a bit odd, doesn't it?
I just feel a little not prepared. So let's see how this actually goes.
So we're both still in holiday mode.
Yeah.
Kind of half in, half out is how I feel.
I would love to be in holiday mode for a long time.
I mean, one day is
day.
the goal, right?
Yes.
But it's not today.
It's definitely not today. Today we need to bring our A game, maybe just the B game. So let's bring A game of some sort.
Let's try. Let's be aspirational.
Okay, let's do it. What are we going to talk about today, Rose?
We're talking about public and private parenting, or public versus private parenting.
We are. We've wanted to talk about this for a bit. So I do wish I felt a little bit more prepared because it's such an important topic.
It is. And I think, at most, this hopefully will be an hour's podcast episode. But, we're not going to cover everything. So if we need to talk about more, we'll come back.
All right. Okay. And I guess when we talk about public versus private parenting, let's just kind of be clear around this. We kind of think about that in terms of the child protection foster care space. But it's really interesting that when you Google public versus private parenting, it's really interesting to see what comes up. And a really important things have come up. It's not like they're
completely, left of field. And there are considerations for foster carers, relative carers, private carers, biological parents. Like there's still considerations for parenting, aren't they? It's just not what we considered talking about when we thought about public and private parenting.
No. And the things that came up were things around sharing children's lives on social media.
I love the terminology for this.
Yeah. What do you mean?
Sharenting.
Oh, sharenting. Yeah, never even heard of that.
Never heard of that. Thanks, Google.
That's a new word for everyone, sharenting. And what that means is, like I just said, sharing children's lives on social media.
On social media. Yeah,
largely without their consent. Really. The other thing that came up is how legal disputes over children are handled. And the final thing is around how children are taught to navigate physical spaces, which I think is really strange.
It is, when you think about public and private parenting, how Google even came up with that. It's important, but it's not, I think it's one of those unconscious expectations I have when I parent or when I'm talking with parents that they do that with their children regardless.
Yeah.
So I think it was odd that it was brought up.
It's really odd. I think it's really odd. But, who are we to argue against Google?
And yeah. Do you know what's really interesting about this sharenting?
Tell me.
A while ago, a very large child protection system did a documentary on the care and protection system, I guess. And there was, I felt at the time, some pressure to share stories of children or young people that were in care at the time.
Yes.
And, pressure to be part of this documentary. And I understand theoretically we wanted to, as a system, show the nuance and the complicated decision-making and the gravity, I guess, of the role. But I wasn't really on board with asking children who were in care to consent to being followed by a documentary team to have, aspects of their life shared, and I'm talking 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds, shared in a documentary that we live in a world that's very technologically, advanced. Things live online forever.
Yeah.
Does your 14-year-old self know that the gravity of the decisions you make, fast forward 10 years, 20 years. So as a child in the care system, obviously has been removed because of abuse and neglect.
Mm-hmm.
Go and share your story with a documentary film team to make it into this film. Like, what happens in 2 years' time, 5 years' time, 10 years' time? I just couldn't do it. I was not ethically comfortable in approaching any of my, like, the young people to be part of it. And at the time we had one young person who had, a remarkable story. Like, you can see it would be a Hollywood story. She was 15.
The whole concept is just so utterly ridiculous. I'm going to tell you, like, I couldn't actually get through that documentary. I watched it, I couldn't get through it because I was so ethically challenged by the sharing of vulnerable people's lives. And I don't even know if they actually use young people. I stopped after it was a parent who was pregnant, about to have a baby, and had other children removed, and they were following her. And I was like, this is just not okay. She was drug using. She was clearly not okay. And I was thinking to myself, how could she actually consent? It's the same thing you're talking about. How could she actually consent to this whole process, this whole thing, when she's clearly drug affected and clearly got some very clear mental health concerns? And also the power stuff. She's about to have a baby. She has the Child Protection Agency so current in her life, and as if she's going to say no.
Yeah.
Like, I could not understand how ethically that could actually be okay. Like, I know when I've written ethical applications for research, the detail you have to go through to demonstrate how you have considered absolutely everything from an ethical position. And then I'm watching this documentary and I was just disturbed.
Disturbed is a good word.
And I think, well, you're talking about young people, and I think when you think about developmentally, those young people, are they actually 14? Are they actually 15? What is actually their understanding, like you say, of what this is going to mean for them long term? But then you have to kind of put this layer of, any developmental deficits on top of that understanding. The whole thing, Rose, was just blew my mind.
I think it blew a lot of people's minds, and I raise it not for any other kind of topic apart from parenting is clearly something even the government, go into. And I just wonder, we talked about it a few episodes ago in relation to coercive control and monitoring and tracking of people. There's so many reality TV shows where, if you're injured and the paramedics come, I'm assuming at some point there's consent given or consent revoked for the sharing of those stories, of just general people around the world. But I find it a particularly interesting topic when you think about from a child or a young person's perspective.
Yeah.
But then from a bureaucratic government position in a child protection statutory agency, that also we can share it.
And I think that things must be pretty shit if I'm sitting in that little ivory office high up in my statutory organisation and I think this is a way to change public opinion of us. We're going to do a documentary and show all of the good work that we do. Like, things must be pretty grim if that's the position you get to increase public opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Don't think?
Well, I mean, if that was the purpose of it, because I don't know what the purpose was. Like, the whole thing is kind of just still shocking today when you think about it.
It's ridiculous.
But I guess, so many people share so much online, and there is a question about consent. There's a question about informed consent and understanding what it means.
Yeah.
So, I just think it's an interesting point.
I think that's a great point that you raised. I'd forgotten all about that.
I think it lives rent-free in my mind because I still try and figure out how it was a good idea.
I don't know how it was. I was working at the uni then and I was like in the midst of writing all of these ethic applications that just kept getting sent back. And I remember thinking to myself, how on earth did this documentary get past any kind of ethical consideration when I can't even get my little tiny research project passed?
Fast.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I was just, the two worlds were just so different. And I was thinking, how did that even happen?
Yeah, I still think about it often. How did it happen?
It's not okay.
And that unborn baby at the time, where is he or she now? Because it was a few years ago. And I just wonder, for years now, their whole in utero, or the end of the in utero experience is documented for anyone to see. How their mother lived, the conversations that, you know, they had with statutory child protection agencies.
Yeah.
It's all out there.
It's a little bit like, do you remember there's a suburb in Campbelltown, New South Wales, Claymore? Do you remember the Claymore documentary from years and years ago?
Yes.
It's like that. Those children that were part of that documentary, like, how did that information follow them? Because firstly, they've got the stigma attached to living in that Department of Housing complex. And I know you shouldn't have stigma attached to where you live, but there is stigma attached.
Yeah.
Lots of big complexes like that, lots of big public housing complexes. So firstly, they're being outed as living there, and that's going to follow them forever. And then secondly, the family dynamics. They were living within these family systems that were, some of them were not okay. And so then that would follow them as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And it's interesting because if you think, like, that's on a very public scale, isn't it?
Yes.
And who knows, maybe there were no ramifications. You know, maybe with the news cycle that we're in these days where things come and go so quickly because we've got such low attention spans and we're always looking for the next click or the next story, and, you know, we cycle through quite quickly.
Yeah.
Topics of interest from yesterday, no longer topics of interest today. But I do wonder what were, if any, ramifications for those children. And again, ethically, how did we get to a point where it's okay?
I don't know. I don't know how we got to that point. I really don't know. Look, I think, I don't know, maybe it's that fine line between, informing social context in terms of, I don't know, being a little window into this particular life. And maybe it's about, if there's more publicity about what it actually is like to live in this way, then maybe there'll be more, I don't know, resources or something.
So, like, the outcome might be worth it if there's a
It might be worth
outcome.
It might be worth it. My concern is around the inclusion of children, though.
Yes.
That's my concern, because how can children consent?
I mean, that's a whole topic in itself, isn't it?
It really
But
is.
the parallel for me is, and we'll talk about it later when we talk about specifically carers and public and private parenting, is in most family systems that I am aware of, there are family secrets, right?
Yeah.
I don't know too many families where there's not some, you know, shame or some secret or some event that's occurred that, you know, people want to keep quiet. And the parallel for me is often when you're doing assessments in the statutory child protection space and we're asking family members to share everything about their family systems, family dynamics, family stories, family rituals, all of those things, and they get written down and often stored in government records for years and years and years. And how does the family then have any power over then their stories once it's contained on a public record?
Do you mean the foster care family?
I mean foster care and the biological.
And the biological
both.
family.
Because if, like, I think about a story in particular that my great-grandfather told me when he was, you know, near the end of his life, a story that he had held on to for 90 plus years, right? A story of great shame for his immediate family at that time. It was not a family story that was told and shared, but before he passed, he shared this story. And I think, imagine if that was written in someone's file because someone was being assessed or someone was, you know, questioning whether someone in my family could, you know, care for their child properly. And that gets written down and stored on a government file for 99 years to come, or the value of another person, a caseworker or manager, puts on that family story. I don't have any then control. And oftentimes I think biological parents and relative carers are asked to tell so much of their family history And I wonder too about that, the relevance and the information and the power then that can be used just arising from those stories. They're no longer private family stories.
Well, is it though, because you can definitely see the other side, can't you?
Absolutely.
So is it around that relevance? You said the word relevance, and I wonder if that's the key. Is it about trying to determine what information is actually relevant to be able to assess this situation?
Yeah, which brings me to you're placing your faith in the skill of a variety of workers to understand and determine relevance and what's recorded and what's not, and what's, how we're going to assess the information.
And I guess we've talked about that before, haven't we, where we've said that people doing foster care assessments, but I know you're talking about biological family assessments as well, but people doing assessments need to be really skillful, and probably one of your most skillful people, or workers. Because they have to be able to sift through information to work out what is relevant. They have to be able to forward plan in terms of being responsive to the information that they got at any time to be able to actually do something with that information.
Because once it's written and stored on a file,
yeah,
you then lose control over how and when it's shared. And then think about therapeutic life story work.
Yeah.
There's absolutely times in that intervention where I've thought, in a private family, would this information even be talked about and known with a child of this age? Or because you think about the relevance, but then you go back to the skill of everyone doing all different types of work. The information's there. I just wonder. And I don't know. It's a curiosity for me, because I firmly believe most families have secrets or information they don't wish to be shared. You come into a child protection system often, and the information you share is not necessarily private anymore.
Do you think that foster carers have more power around what is shared than biological families who are part of the child protection system?
I don't know. I've never thought about that. Do you?
Yeah, I do.
You do?
I think that biological families who are part of the system are much more vulnerable in terms of the information that gets thrown about them. I think foster carers still have some autonomy in terms of what they share. Because just say I've got this big family secret, I'm in the midst of a foster care assessment, the assessor's not going to know that I've got this secret unless I share it.
Correct.
Yeah? But just say I'm a parent, a biological parent, and child protection are doing an assessment on me because, maybe I've got some clear parenting issues that have been identified. If I keep something back that then gets uncovered by different means, then that's actually just going to go against me, isn't it?
Yes.
Suddenly I'm not going to be honest or truthful.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be a genuine narrator.
No.
And no one's going to listen to the reasons why I didn't share that information.
See how there's so much complexity to public and private parenting.
I feel like it comes back to, I like that you said relevance, because I think it comes back to why is this information being asked? And then what is going to happen to this information? And when do you tell somebody to stop talking because that's not relevant?
Yeah.
Like, how do you know what's relevant? How do you don't? Sorry. How do you know what's relevant? And then how do you know what's not relevant? That's a better way to put that.
Good questions. And how do you do that all at the same time whilst thinking about the question you've asked, the answer you're getting? Do you need to drill in? Do you need to get more information? What's the next topic? Have you covered everything? Are your notes, there's so much, isn't there?
I tell you how you don't get to that point is when you have a structured decision-making tool that directs every single thing that you say in an interview. I think you're more likely to get to that point in terms of knowing what's relevant and what's not relevant if you actually have an agency there that invests in professional judgment.
Yeah.
And professional curiosity.
Yeah. Good points.
Yeah. All right, we're a little off topic already. We're kind of on topic, but a little off topic. But I mean, that's probably it's a conversation. I love it when we stump each other.
I know, because I'm like, I've never thought about foster carers versus relative/kinship carers and who's got more autonomy over information shared or,
Look, I got to say this. If I was ever going to do a foster care assessment,
Like you personally be
personally, I would not say everything because I would always be thinking what is relevant, what isn't relevant. And it's my choice to determine what's relevant because it's my life.
Absolutely.
And I expect other people to kind of approach the situation in that way as well. I always think people are not telling everything because why would they?
I mean, there are some people that are just genuine oversharers and have, no kind of filter and share lots. But even those types of people, I think, definitely have to be holding things back. Even I think about a school meeting I was in last year about my own daughter, and her class teacher asked me the name of an illness that she has. And I thought, none of your absolute business. Like if I wanted you to have that or I thought you needed to have that, I'd share that. But all you need to know is sometimes what happens is her sleep is really impacted and she's coming to school really tired.
Yeah. Did I ever tell you, this is so not on topic, but it just reminded me of a story. Did I ever tell you about that time I completely lost my shit at probably at primary school at one of my daughter's
I feel like I have to say, what time are we talking about?
No, only once. This is more than once, but this is a really bad time. So what it was is she was so little. She was like in year one or something, and she was being bullied. And so Andrew and I talked about Andrew and my husband. We kind of we'd had enough. We'd had enough because there was this bubbly little happy little girl that suddenly had turned into this very sad little girl. It was heartbreaking to watch. So we asked for a meeting with the school.
If I was at school, I'd be shitting my pants.
And the whole time, Rose, I was saying to Andrew, because he can be fiery, can't he?
Yep.
He's a very passionate man. He can be very loud. He can be very fiery. The whole time I'm saying to him, like driving to the school, and while we're waiting, I'm like saying to him, my hands on his lap, I'm like, you need to be really calm. You need to be calm. You need to listen. You need to not over talk. You can't talk over them. We have to listen. We have to get to some point here where we're getting some resolution because this cannot last because clearly this is not having a good impact on her. So he's like, oh, stop talking. I get it. And so then we sit down with the school counsellor. I have a bit of an opinion about some school counsellors. Some are amazing. And I know some amazing ones, but I know some that are not amazing. This person was not amazing. So we sit down with this school counsellor, not even the principal. The principal was too busy to meet with us. So we got the school counsellor. And she had a different child's file in front of her. And she started talking to us about a different child.
I feel so bad for this counsellor.
At that point, I was done. And at that point, I was like...
Were we like 2 minutes in?
2 minutes, not even.
And you're like, I'm done.
I'm done. But what really, I was still keeping it together because we just had the whole pep talk with, me and Andrew. But what really did it is this school counsellor telling me that my daughter's bullying was actually her problem and that she needed to go to a group for children with anxiety. Then I lost my shit. I lost it. I was yelling at this person about how incompetent she was. And Andrew was just like...
sitting quiet, isn't he?
That man's never quiet. He was so quiet. And so then I left and I was in that school office shouting to the principal, get your ass out here, you're incompetent fucking bitch. I was like, off. If they'd had that, that legislation now where you can
ban someone from the school.
I reckon I would have been banned. She did not come out of her office.
Why was she?
So angry. I was so angry. I've not been that angry at school. I mean, I took her out of that school. 2 days later, she was gone. She was at a different school and she was a different kid. The impact of bullying is terrible on children.
It is terrible.
But that's got nothing to do with this whole situation, but it's just a story that we still talk about.
I think that's a family story that will be talked about and passed on for generations to come.
God.
At one time, mum/nan/grandma did this.
Completely lost my shit. I just still remember yelling for that principal, calling her all the names under the sun.
See, and let's flip that. If you were a private parent in a private house, with the autonomy to do that. Imagine if you were a foster care or a relative carer doing that.
Imagine if I wasn't a seemingly middle-class family, nice white family, who had other children at the school, who was really kind of compliant. and mostly passive. Imagine.
Yeah.
Imagine there would have been a child protection report made about me.
Police might have been called.
Police may have been called. There would have been such a different outcome.
Massively different outcome.
Yeah. Andrew was part of the school community. I wasn't. I mean, I worked full time and
you were at work.
but also I hated school parents. Like I just wasn't into it. So I tried to only go when I had to.
So they had to front up every day and be like, yep, that was my wife.
Oh yeah, he wouldn't care. He was probably very proud of me, but not that he didn't really get a chance to say anything.
No, because I bet you were humming for hours after that.
I was so
Maybe days.
angry. It was so well. I mean, we kind of left that meeting, and I found her another school, and she was out.
See the autonomy and the difference you have, rights or the way in which you can make decisions and not have to check with anyone, and you've got all of that autonomy, as you should in a private family, but not every parent/carer has that autonomy.
No, that's true. That's true. Good way to bring this back into our topic, Rose. Let's talk about, so when we talk about, it's like public versus private parenting is something that's a term that we use all the time. Yes?
Yep.
And I don't even know, I think maybe it was Dr. Dee Neveling that I first heard it from.
Well, I heard it from you.
Did you? Well, I'm pretty sure I heard it from Dee because you know how amazing Dee is. Pretty sure I heard it from her. But
it's nice to have language.
It's a nice.
Don't you think? When you started using that language, I was like, that's the missing language.
Yeah, and I've always wanted to write a paper about it, but obviously I never do. But I always wanted to because I think for that reason, sharing that language to describe the expectations attached to the parenting role. And that's what it is.
Yeah. It's
the expectations attached to being a public parent if you're a foster carer. And we're talking about carers who are authorised by a statutory agency. So it could be foster carers, it could be kinship carers.
Could be relative carers.
But anyone that's authorised is what we're referring to, yeah? Yeah. Because there's a whole different set of rules attached to someone who is an authorised carer, whatever your label is.
Yes.
Yeah? So that's who we're talking about. But I think, like in essence, I think foster carers are asked to provide this caring home for children.
That looks like a private, closed family.
That's right. Treat these children like they're your own. Yeah?
Yep.
However, there's this whole other raft of expectations attached to the fact that you're a public parent.
And when things go wrong, you'll be reminded very quickly, these are not your biological children.
Well, I think when you have to do things like ask for permission for haircuts, ask for permission for
travelling. We live in New South Wales.
Yep.
Our border is the ACT.
Yeah.
People can go there in a day trip.
Yeah.
Permission to cross the border into the ACT.
So when you have to ask for permission for piercings, which I think so. I mean, I don't know how I feel about that, but I think, if it's kind of like socially acceptable, it's part of a peer experience, everyone's getting their ears pierced, and this poor child is singled out because they can't actually, get their mum, who they call mum, to kind of say yes. They have to wait for a caseworker to say yes. Like, that's pretty poor, isn't it?
Yes. And then the caseworker might say, my manager asked, have you asked the biological parents what their opinion is of this nose ring, ear ring, navel ring? Because we'd like their opinion before we say yes.
And then the biological parent says no.
Yes. And then what happens?
Then what happens? That's right. What happens to that kid who misses out on this whole peer experience?
Yes.
Or just misses out on this chance to actually express their own identity in some way.
And they're, you could think, oh, well, they're quite trivial things.
But they're not.
But they're actually not. If you think about the context of parenting over time and the number of decisions that parents make every day and how easily some parents make decisions, I don't want to use the word flippantly, but we make so many decisions every day, right?
Yeah.
Yes, you can go to that friend's house. Yes, you can have that sleepover. No, you can't do this. Yes, you think about as a carer in a statutory agency, going along, especially if you've got other children in the home that are biologically yours, and knowing that for this child, I can make all the decisions. For this child, I actually have to stop and think, do I have the autonomy to make this decision? Is this a conversation with the caseworker? Is this a permission-seeking activity? Or is this an actual consent, formally signed activity that there's going to be a case conference over? Imagine the strain of that.
Yeah.
And then we go back to, we say, please take these children into your home. Please love them. Please care for them. Please treat them as if they're your own.
Yeah.
And we don't want them to feel any different. But then the system itself ensures everyone's reminded very often, you are different.
Which I think if treated well, that, my thing about difference. If difference is celebrated, then it doesn't become it's not weaponized.
But I don't know how this difference could be celebrated when there's a rule for one, and it's autonomy and their right to have voice and choice and opinions and decisions made, hopefully in consultation with the child or young person, and the parents making good decisions, to, it's Saturday, we need to wait and ring your caseworker on Monday and ask.
But I think that's the thing about the expectations attached to the different roles. Because for that kid, they should know that they're a child in care. It shouldn't be something that's a secret. It shouldn't be something that's seen as a problem. It should be something that actually is just part of who they are. Like the fact that they have brown hair, like the fact that they have, blue eyes. It should be the same as that. You have two parents. Well, you have four parents. You have me.
6 or 8. Who knows?
That's right. And I think the minute it becomes a problem is the minute that difference becomes an issue.
So when you say the minute it becomes a problem, who is creating the problem, in your opinion?
Well, I think that depends, doesn't it? Because I think that a problem can be created, one, obviously we've both seen this, if at all costs the word foster care is never, out of home care, whatever language used, is never spoken.
Yeah.
At all, the child actually thinks, or not thinks, because that's wrong, because they should feel a sense of belonging to the family. They need to, because that's how actually children develop. But it's when that sense of belonging is challenged either by the foster parent, by the care agency, by whatever, by the rules attached. It's when those rules actually impact on the sense of belonging.
Yeah.
Did that actually make sense? Because I'm just kind of speaking as I'm thinking. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't.
Well, I think it did, because I think you've just changed my mind.
Yeah.
Because you are right. If the expectations are clear and I'm thinking of impulsive Rose at 14, 15.
Yeah.
If I'm asking for something and you're telling me to wait till Monday,
yeah,
I know I'm going to be like, this is so unfair, and, pushing every goddamn boundary, just trying to get what I want to happen, right?
Yeah.
But again, that's a normal part of being an adolescent, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And having firm boundaries and very firm, there's actually, we need to wait is actually not a bad thing. Whereas before you said that, I was like, no, why should a teenager have to wait to? But it is quite a normal, I think, when I reflect back on my adolescent years, it's normal to have boundaries and to have kind of pauses, and we need more information, and we need to do this. Not everything needs to be the problem that I think I had it in my head as.
Yeah.
Because it seems so unfair to a teenager. If everyone's going to get their belly buttons pierced this weekend, why can't they just go and do it too? But that doesn't automatically happen in every family either. And that's the difference, isn't it? It's not like it's one rule for everyone. Like, every family is different.
Yeah.
And so if it is known and talked about, and the expectation is very clear that there are things that we actually can't just make the decisions on, then that difference can absolutely be celebrated, and it's not a terrible thing.
It's not a terrible thing, no. If that's how it's seen and that's how it's approached.
Yeah.
I think it can feel like a terrible thing when either the kid or the carer then puts their own stuff on it and says, which, I mean, of course you're going to in some way.
Like, we're humans. We all do that. We have our own lens and our own kind of like a bag of past wrongs.
Yeah.
That when the next thing goes wrong, you bring everything forward and you're like, this is shit. I do it.
Yeah.
Like, I do it all the time.
All the time. We all do it. We all do it. But I think if you are a carer, you may have, You may be really tired. You may have just had enough of the agency. You might be working with an agency where there's a mismatch in terms of what they can provide in terms of support and what you require.
Yeah.
There's lots of things that can kind of mean that as a carer you might be experiencing some kind of burnout, vicarious trauma, something yourself. Then I think it's more likely that everything is problem saturated.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then the difference isn't celebrated. The difference is kind of the focal point of what's happening and what's going wrong.
I mean, I think the thing about the difference being celebrated is that it's something that has to happen from like day dot.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It just has to be the way that this family functions. And it can't be, because I've seen this, it can't be tokenistic. And there's an example of this. So I was once doing some work with a young girl. I think she was maybe 11, and she was in a lovely family, a lovely foster family. But the celebration of difference in terms of her being in care was really tokenistic and actually wasn't real. And I know that because whilst they talked about her story, whilst they talked about the fact that she had other relatives and she had 2 mums and 2 dads and blah, 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 they didn't actually want her to interrogate her story in any way. They didn't want her to ask questions about it because they didn't want to go into the particulars of the story.
So they're like ticking the box. But there's no actual, acceptance, genuineness and exploration of...
That's right.
Of what the actual boxes are.
What that actually means for identity. And it was about identity. But they said the right things. They could verbalize how important it was for her to know her cultural heritage, her family of origin, all of this stuff. They could verbalize that.
Yeah.
And they said it so well. And part of it, I'm sure, was genuine. But yeah, any other detail about why was she removed? What does that mean? Anything else that didn't tick that was out of that box was a no-go zone.
Mm.
It was really damaging.
I was just going to say, what's the impact?
Well, the impact on this girl is that she is very confused about her life, her story, and has internalized this identity where she is a problem.
Mm.
Because the other thing for this girl is that she has just cycled through different placements. Do you know what I mean? So everything was conditional, I'm sure. I obviously can't read into her mind, but I'm making this kind of hypothesis that in the way that she thought about things is that things were conditional. Yeah. And that she had expectations where she would meet the needs of the carer family because that was her job in the family.
And you think about, the conditional relationship then and the other aspects of life that it creeps into then.
Yeah.
Those conditions.
Absolutely.
It's huge.
Well, it just undermines her whole sense of who she is.
Yeah, her identity.
That's right.
The congruence or, authenticity of her identity.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
She was this really lovely young girl from Indian heritage. And her family were, and I'm not trying to denigrate the family because I actually think it was a really lovely placement. And I don't even think that they understand that this is what they were doing.
Yeah.
I don't think it was a conscious thing at all because I think if they have, but I don't think they'd accept it either.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
So, because I think about if I was a private parent,
yeah,
and there was information I didn't want my children to have about other family members, I can control that narrative, can't I? And I do that consciously at times, and at other times I do it very unconsciously.
Yes.
And so it would be really hard moving from a private family of having even just that general level of autonomy that I can choose what I share about whoever, and I can control narratives, and I can control contact or relationship to an extent, especially for younger kids. Imagine them being a carer, and that's just how you are, but all of a sudden there's a different side to it, isn't it? And someone needs to hold a mirror up to it, but how do you do that?
Yeah. Well, obviously I did not do that well because I'm no longer working with that young girl. So when I tried to hold that mirror up, it was not well received.
Well, I imagine it would be really hard because I can't imagine you saying to me, I don't know, pick a family member that I, have some control over some narrative. Imagine you sitting down and saying to me, well, Rose, I think you're just ticking boxes and I'm not sure. Like, that would be so difficult.
Yeah, to hear it.
To hear and to even understand some of the reasoning behind it. Like I think my back would just be up and I'd be like, who are you to tell me? Like I am ticking the boxes. I'm doing exactly what was asked of me.
Yeah.
And you're going to tell me it's not good enough?
And unfortunately, we've worked with so many families like that, haven't we? And unfortunately, what happens is that it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy that there will be some disruption in that placement. Because as a kid, you can only manage conditions for so long. As a foster carer, you can only be dissatisfied with the expectations placed on you for so long before the placement becomes a problem.
Always that bubbling point, isn't there?
Yeah.
Where things spill and end or spill and become very messy for a very long time.
Yeah.
But that mess impacts, it seeps in on everyone.
It really does. And I honestly think, whilst I don't want to kind of, make this, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of, I don't want to dumb this whole situation down. That's not the word I was looking for, but that's all I could think of. Because it's a very complex situation. But I think that if right at the very beginning, if the whole kind of situation around being a public parent was explained better, was acknowledged, that was the language that was used to describe possible feelings the carer was having, feelings maybe the child was having, if that was the language that was applied to a situation so that there was this joint understanding, then I think long term some of these problems would not happen.
No, I think there'd still be problems, but your expectation and your mindset would be very different potentially, and that could potentially mean for a lot of actual families things could look different. The outcomes could be different.
So different. And there would not be all of this wasted energy. Do you know what I mean? So much wasted energy around trying to manage when situations become problematic. Instead, that energy can be used to actually support that child within that placement to develop a really strong sense of belonging and a really strong sense of identity.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Which goes back to celebrating difference.
Yeah, I agree. And it's interesting. Have you found when you use the term public and private parenting with carers, some of them, the light just goes on and they're like, oh, like that, yes.
Yeah.
I have my own children. I have these foster children, relatives, and there's different rules. And I just thought they asked, could I just give a bed and love and food? And that's but over time, it's not just a bed and love and food. It's so much more in-depth and nuanced and complicated than that. But we set it up as just...
Yeah, we set it up with this oh, you're a loving person. You're really nice. This is such a lovely child, and together you're going to have this beautiful family experience.
Yeah, blended families can work. It'll be amazing.
Right.
Blended families can work, and they are amazing. But this is a statutory intervention into your very private life. It's a very private household.
Yeah. But
what you do in it is not private anymore.
That's right. And this is what that means in terms of expectations.
Yes, this is what it means for your children who, turn from 17 to 18 and all of a sudden they need a working with children check to live in their own household.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
The people that they choose to bring into their household may also need a working with children check if they're there so many nights per week or per year.
Yeah.
It's all of those things that you think they don't happen in private families, and we don't explain it. And along the way, it can get really complicated.
It can get really, really complicated, and it actually doesn't have to be that way.
No.
It just needs to be really clearly communicated the whole way through. And I think that then is a problem as well, because if you think about what we know about staff retention rates, and you may have a child in your care for 10 years, you've probably had at least 10 workers.
At least.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that it's really hard to get some consistency around the way that the practice happens when that's the scenario you practice within.
Yeah.
But It's not impossible.
Even the information share or I know some caseworkers would not even ask. They'd say, you don't need to ask me about navel piercing. You go ahead. Or you don't need to ask me if your 17-year-old can actually enlist in the armed services. Absolutely, you do in this state.
Yeah.
Or at least you used to have to.
Yeah.
So even the difference of caseworkers' understanding of what it is that people have actual decision-making capacity on.
Do you remember there used to be this whole case management, like, tick box? This is what you could do as a carer. This is what you had to get,
There still is. There still is, and it's online. Well, in our state it is. And it's very interesting for me when I do care reviews or assessments, and I show that to people, and I'm like, let's have a look at, but it doesn't cover everything either.
No.
If a biological parent is very clear, you are not cutting my child's hair, and I've had this recently in the last 2 years, and the carers are like, we are absolutely cutting this child's hair because it's actually in their value judgment, a terrible haircut. And the school was like, absolutely, that child's not coming into school with that haircut. But it took 3 months of meetings about a child's haircut.
And I tell you why that's not okay, because it's that kid that suffers.
Absolutely.
When really someone should have just said to that biological parent, I get how important this is to you, but this isn't about you. Of course.
That poor biological parent felt like they had no control over anything else. So that was only about control in my assessment.
Yeah.
So if you can't figure that out and work with what sense of control can you give this parent to help the child in a situation, then inform, because no one did. And what happened was the next thing that came up, and it's 2 years on, we're still fighting over things like that just impact this child so much. And then it impacts the carers. It impacts how willing they are to have conversations, how willing they are to send the child to contact, how willing they are to sit in case conferences and have the same conversation. Do you know what I mean? All of that just impacts in so many different ways, and then there's an accumulation. Well, and then we're asking them, please care for this child for the next, 11 years in a very loving, healthy way where you're meeting all domains of their life.
And I actually think that's a perfect example of the impact of public parenting, and particularly when it's not managed well.
Yes.
When the expectations aren't explained well, or when people don't even understand what the expectations are. That's a great example because of that accumulation. Because suddenly you go from questions about a haircut to, I can't care for this kid for 11 years if I have to have this other person in my life as well.
Yes.
And that's a problem.
It's a huge problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, that's something we see all the time.
All the time. And I think it also plays into that public perception too, doesn't it, of carers that they're either saints or they're in it for the money, or they're in it to abuse kids.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Or, and my personal favourite, is when the perception of the carers is that, it's kind of the same stuff, but it's about, you must just be such a nice person because you have, opened your heart and your home to this child. And I think that's I get that. I get that a lot, because I think you have to be a particularly accepting person to be able to be a foster carer. I absolutely think that. I think it's an amazing thing that people can do if they can do it, but not everyone can do it.
I agree with that.
And I think it's okay if you can't do it. There's other things you can do. If you feel like you really want to support families or support children, there's other things that you can do. Don't become a foster carer.
Yep.
But if you're getting into foster caring because you want people to think how amazing you are, then that placement's going to end in tears anyway. Because at some stage, that glow's going to wear off.
Well, yeah, and it's about you as an adult, not about the child.
No, but how many times is it about the adult?
I mean, lots of times it's about the adults.
And how many times, and I know I've said this before on our show, but how many times do workers attribute skill or knowledge that aren't there because they like these people?
I mean, that's established in research, isn't it?
Yeah.
We attribute a higher level of skill and capacity to the people that we like.
That's right. Yeah. Instead of being able to actually, again, exercise professional judgment or professional development or something, to be able to actually just do some sense making and see something in a different way.
Be a bit objective.
Yeah, that's
and informed by evidence.
That's a better way of putting that, because I think that's where things fall down.
Do
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
And I think if you think right now, Rose, if you think about the worst foster carers you've ever met in your life,
Yep.
and then you think about what you know has been written about them before other people may have seen that there was some concerns, I bet you what was written about them was glowing, was amazing, was all about the fact that they can take charge, was all about the fact that they actually, you know, what am I trying to say? Just are good advocates, but not in a good way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or are, really caring, just kind of saints. We're going back to this saint stuff.
Yeah.
Where in reality, if you look at that, maybe what was written about them with a different lens, you see elements of control. You see elements of need to be right. You see elements of possessing things, items, people. Yeah. You see so many red flags that weren't picked up initially.
Yeah, because the lens was, these are just great people. And they took the sibling.
Yeah.
And they took the half sibling.
Well, the lens was getting carers because children needed a bed to sleep in.
Yes. Well, they just need a home with a bed, some love and food. But that is not the expectation of being a public parent.
No, it's never going to be able to be sustained.
No.
Never.
No.
Particularly if you go into that foster care arrangement and you are actually someone with a lot of red flags. And you're going into this arrangement to meet your own needs in whatever way that might be.
Yeah. And I wonder if that's trickier for relative kin carers because of the family history and the relationships in the family and that accumulation too. If, your sister, has been a particular way for years and you're worn down already by the behaviours and some of the challenges that come with that. And then all of a sudden you're asked to take on maybe her children.
Mm.
How much more difficult is it when you actually know and you're part of the family system to be then a public parent and to listen to, we want you to build a bridge with the birth family, with the birth mum, with your sister. We want you to maintain boundaries, but we want you to supervise the contact. We want this to be a family arrangement where she can come into your home, but you've had a very clear rule for 2 years. Your sister's not allowed in your home because she brings a whole lot of chaos and a whole lot of risk to your family that you don't accept. But now an agency's saying to you, oh, but she's the birth mum.
But what happens if you don't even see that the parent is an issue?
Well, there's that on the flip side, isn't there?
Because I think the bar is lower for relative carers and it shouldn't be because they're still authorised carers.
Yeah.
The bar should be the same.
I agree.
And I think that relative carers, yes, for all those reasons you've said, there is so much more baggage attached to that care arrangement. And I think some people feel forced into that care arrangement because they are relatives.
Yeah.
And you should never enter into a placement where you feel forced to actually be the carer in that situation because it's just going to end in tears.
Yep. I'm thinking of an assessment I did years ago, and when I was assessing motivation, the female potential carer gave all these lovely reasons, I guess, for motivation, and it sounded really good. And I said to the male applicant, can you tell me about your motivation? And he said, my mother told me I had to do this.
Wow.
She wants the child to remain in family.
Right.
I was like, well, that's heavy, isn't it? Well, it's family, it's what you do, isn't it? It's like, is it?
Mm.
Yeah, when my mother speaks, we listen.
Mm.
I was like, oh, I need to unpack this further because what type of thinking about that motivation. Yeah, it was really interesting. So I had to come back to it. And
because what is that going to mean when you then have caseworkers in and out of your house? You have to ask permission for this kid to have a hair card.
And one was a very newborn and one was a toddler. And they had raised children who were in their adult years with their own children. They were even great-grandparents.
Yeah.
And now your mother is asking you to do this.
Yeah.
What does it mean on so many levels?
On so many levels. When you have someone coming in questioning the way that you're parenting, how's that going to feel for you?
Yeah.
What's that going to mean for you?
Well, yeah, I can tell you fast forward 2 years, it didn't end well.
No.
Because don't come into my house and tell me how to parent. You asked me to have this child.
Yeah.
And the family position was this child would come here and I've done everything that's asked of me, and now you're going to tell me about this and that? Not having it. And for a while, you know, the ticker boxing was done where it looked like feigned compliance, but you can't sustain that.
No, you can't. You can't sustain it, and you shouldn't sustain it because we know the impact on children is so bad.
Yeah.
So bad. And I won't go into detail about this, but, you know, I have done some recent thinking about permissive parenting and uninvolved parenting, and the impact on children is quite similar, whether you're a permissive parent or an uninvolved parent, in terms of it's such a negative impact on their sense of self and sense of identity. But what was interesting in this situation was, in my view, and I only know this very small part of, you know, what I was privy to in terms of information, was that I think some of the carers' uninvolved parenting strategies, was mislabeled as being permissive, because there's a different view there.
See, and I was going to ask you, do you think permissive parenting is the same as uninvolved?
No way.
Okay, me either.
No way. Permissive parenting, the way that you know it's different is because with permissive parents, there's still lots of emotional warmth. There's high emotional warmth. There's low boundaries, there's low structure, but there's high emotional warmth. And you can tell because this person will think of this kid as can do no wrong, but as their friend. Whereas uninvolved, literally, you might do the things that you need to do to keep that kid alive and to keep services off your back, but no more.
And no emotional warmth, is there?
Well, there's probably some pretend emotional warmth.
That's not emotional warmth.
But it's probably, to some services, probably looks like, oh yeah, they get on.
So it's an act.
It's an act. It's fake. I think it's fake. If you're a smart enough person, you've got services in and out of your life, you're going to fake it, aren't you?
Yes.
Because you're not going to not fake it, because, I mean, you'd have to be completely silly to do that.
Well, we've met some.
I mean, we have to have weeks.
Yeah. But yeah, I think permissive parenting is very different to uninvolved parenting, and I'm glad you made that distinction.
So very different. So very different. But
the outcome?
The outcome is so similar in terms of what it means for this kid.
Yeah.
The impact on sense of self, and identity is worse for uninvolved, but still negative impacts for both.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's so much research about that. Well, at least for permissive parenting, there is.
And for uninvolved.
Yeah, okay.
So much research. There's so much about parenting styles or in general.
Yeah.
It's part of that whole stuff around parenting styles.
Yeah. So interesting, isn't it? And that's the other aspect of public and private parenting, I think, too. How does your parenting style impact how you actually sit with a public parenting role?
Well, I think it goes back to assessing carers as general foster carers instead of actually looking at the different skills and then working out where this carer might be best suited. Because there's going to be some carers that are just perfect short-term crisis carers who can actually provide some immediate stability, but they're not good long-term carers because they lack the ability to actually create a strong sense of belonging.
Yes. And
vice versa.
Also, the ability to make, maintain and repair relationships is a capacity in itself.
Yes.
And for some people, that's a really difficult capacity to have. Yeah. And when you think about long-term carers, you think about the cycles of abuse and violence and, you know, cycle of change even. If you're long-term carer, you think about how many times you're going to have to maintain a really tricky relationship and repair them and go through that cycle over and over and over. Yeah. And there are some people whose capacity just doesn't, there's no goodness of fit to that.
Well, they just can't do it.
Yeah.
They can't do it.
I want to say that, but yes.
Because part of that skill and that capacity is about knowing that this isn't a personal attack on you. And we all know biological parents, carers who see it as a personal attack.
And then it's something different. You know, it's it's felt differently and it's held differently.
Yeah.
And then that accumulation hits differently.
So different.
Yeah.
So different. I mean, you look, would it feel good?
No.
This kid push back and to be like, completely in your face about different things. Of course it wouldn't feel good. But I think it feels much worse when you kind of use that as, well, it is against me. This is a personal attack on me, blah, blah, instead of understanding what might be triggering this behavior.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. All right. I think that I want us to talk a little bit about some of the quotes that you've got, Rose, because I love those quotes. Do you want to talk about them?
So in 2024, there was a carer survey done in New South Wales, and I just picked a few quotes to highlight, I guess, from carers who participated in this survey. These quotes kind of highlight private and public parenting challenges, I guess. So here's one from a carer, and this ties into when you're talking about the expectations from the very beginning.
Yeah.
If you think it had that conversation in context, while I read this quote, I think it hits a bit differently. So to have less visits to my home by caseworkers, I think they should be able to establish whether or not they need to visit so regularly. Once a month after 5 years is not necessary. Even my granddaughter asks, "Why are you here again? My nana knows how to take care of me."
So what are you saying, that right at the very beginning, if the expectation was that once a month home visits would be happening, and this is why? And this is what will happen?
Yes.
Then perhaps it would be viewed differently.
That was when you were talking before, so like earlier in the segment about expectations and how we train and assess carers right from the dot. This is a quote I thought about.
Yeah, for sure.
Because this is I'm assuming, a child saying, I'm taken care of. Why are you here? They're so unclear. So are they unclear about their child in care? They're unclear about the role of a caseworker, and they're unclear about, yes, nan is nan and mum and carer.
Yeah.
But how does that child understand that role, and actually why there are caseworkers here every month?
Yeah. Absolutely. Because you hear that so often, don't you? Like when you do work, when you work with carers, you hear that's one of their complaints. Why do they have to come here? All they do is sit and talk to me about, parenting or what I'm doing.
Yeah, my last month like checklist.
Yeah.
Had a carer say to me last year, our strategy is we just put off, and there's emergencies and there's things that happen, and so they constantly trying to push the home visits back to be like every other month. And I was like, well, that's exhausting. And they were both like, yeah, it is, isn't it? I'm like, it's not a good thing. Why are you doing that? You are relative carers. That is your role. You have 3 children in your care that are not biologically yours. Yes, you love them. Yes, they've been here a long time. But you have openly disagreed with, in our state, having a guardianship order where none of that would have to happen. So you are very clear that this has to happen. Why are you playing games? Because they come and they ask the same questions. And, this is our 3rd caseworker in the last 2 years. I was like, yes, this is a system that you had an option to not be part of, and you actively chose to be part of. You can't play games like that.
No.
And then the children and the young people in the house. Oh, she's coming again. Like the view they had of their caseworker. It's that parallel process.
Yeah.
It's really...
And then how does that caseworker internalize that? Like, how must it be for them to be in this house feeling all of this kind of angst against them being there?
Yes. And then when a decision needs to be made by a manager, how does anyone think that that's going to be, a decision that's made fully where everyone's at the same table and consideration is given where it needs to be given to those people, to those grandparents? Because I was like, man, if I was the manager casework or the manager client services, and everyone knew that this was their strategy, and then you turn around and maybe expect something different, like, it's like give and take and egg and chicken and all of that. Like, it's just a messy, complex, complicated family system. But if those grandparents had really good direction and expectations laid at the beginning, and when the decision around them saying, we don't want to be guardians, then this is what it means then for the next 10 years. How comfortable are you? Because clearly you're not comfortable with it.
Yeah.
But instead, none of those conversations happen. We sweep that under the carpet and we, get drawn into other kind of things that are all problems because that actual underlying problem isn't being addressed.
Yeah, that's right. And then the capacity of those carers is probably being viewed very differently.
Yeah.
Because you would have all of that problem deficit focus attached to everything you see as the agency.
Yes.
It would just be one more time these carers were a pain in the ass.
Absolutely. And I think part of this 2024 carer survey highlighted that not many carers would actually recommend it to their friends or family. And it's what you just said. I wonder how much that plays a part in them not recommending becoming carers.
Which is so problematic because children are always going to need foster care.
Yeah, always.
And I think, this view, I'm going to say it. I've said it to you so many times. It's one of my rants, one of my high horse moments. But I think because of the way that the New South Wales child protection system has gone for the last 5 or so years, more children are going to need foster care, but those children are going to have higher, more complex needs because they've been left in very unsafe situations for a lot longer than what they should have. Do you know, how stupid, honestly, Rose, how stupid are people? Because if you leave children in unsafe situations and you can fluff about and you can pretend and you can do whatever it is and you can identify this place as being safe as much as you want when it actually isn't safe, then eventually this kid is still going to come out and this kid is going to be so much more impacted.
Absolutely. And we see it now.
It just makes me so cranky.
See it now. Let me just read you this quote.
Yeah, because
acknowledge the massive emotional toll caring for a child that is not yours places on you. You don't just love them for a day, they become your family, like we're expected, and then you torture us by reminding us of every day that they're not our kids.
Whoa.
You put all the guilt, financial costs, and demands on us, but then turn around and let us know that you don't get to decide for them, make choices for them, know them better, have any rights, have any attachments to them, etc. I have felt completely destroyed at times and in fear of losing children I have cared for since they were babies. They do not respect or value the attachment you have to them.
Wow. Honestly, that's such a problematic but also powerful quote.
Yeah.
I feel so sad for that carer that their experience has led to that view because I think that will just be horrible.
Imagine living that every day.
I can't imagine living that every day. I can't. And then I can't imagine the impact that would have on their capacity to care for that child.
Well, I was just going to say that because parenting is hard anyway.
Yeah.
So this is on top of an already hard job. Last quote, we're exhausted. I wouldn't wish this on anyone. I suggest we move to supervised homes and paid carers as if they are a professional. The toll it's taken on my family is enormous.
Wow. Were there any positive quotes about being a carer? Did we just pull out those ones? Was that just like that's so sad. What a terrible view of the system.
Yeah, there were lots of terrible views of the system. And I think a lot of it, if we could unpack public and private parenting better.
Yes.
I'm not saying that those views would be magically better or disappear, but I think there would be a shift or a difference in expectations, in lived experiences, and in how prepared people were to actually be carers.
It's that stuff, isn't it? It's about the fact that you give people an informed position then to agree or disagree to actually being part of that care system.
Yes.
You just need to be honest about what it's going to mean.
Yeah.
And use the language to actually for them to be able to visualize
and once
their
a
role.
Family or a person or a couple says no, you leave it at that. Recently, I was informed of a child that had come into care and someone had reached out to, extended family members and asked them to take care of, their nephew. And they were very clear, we cannot do it. We cannot actually have or allow or have a relationship with that child's parents. We just can't. We cannot do it. And we understand the expectation is can't do it. The agency went back 5 times. Well, and towards the end of those 5 times, this family said very clearly, I'm not prepared. This couple said, we're not prepared to risk our children's safety here because the parents are, are very unsafe people, and we are not prepared to have a relationship with them. We're not prepared for them to know that their child is placed with us. This is where we live. We're not prepared for any level of disclosure of information. And because these were very intelligent people, had knew enough, we're not prepared to abide by any of that legislative responsibility. So no, the agency come back and said, we can give you CCTV cameras in your house.
No.
To help your safety. They're like, what? How else do I say this?
Wow. I mean, that's kind of...
That shows you how what you just said, we're always going to need carers, and we're going to need carers more. Like, that's just one tiny example in the last 9 months of a family that I know that were like, what else do I need to say for them to know this is not an ongoing conversation. It's a no full stop. Yeah. But it became a no full stop, I think, 6 times.
It's really not okay. It's really not okay. And then you can think about what the agency might be saying about those people.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can just kind of hear how that might be playing out.
I mean, and you think about the expectations we have of a family system. And,
well,
I just,
I mean, I'm just going to say it. I mean, the whole thing around family finding. I mean, family finding as a policy, as a practice, as an expectation. I've got some huge issues with family finding.
Yeah, I do.
Where you troll through generations of different family members on a family tree until you find one person that says yes, who has no relationship with this child or a very minimal relationship with this child, but because they are,
DNA, there's some DNA there.
Yeah. Then obviously they're a replacement option. Yes. Obviously they're a good option.
Absolutely, they're family.
Don't be ridiculous.
And I just think we always need to remember not all sibling bonds are strong, and not all family members are safe, and not all family want relationships with family. And that's just life. That's been life for as long as I've walked this earth. And yes, you can have values around how families should support each other and be there for each other. Absolutely. But you don't get to decide who a person determines is family.
No.
And if someone has cut off family, if someone's distant, if someone has put a very clear boundary in, I don't know why we need to be told 6 times the answer's no, because someone went through and found a relative that had no connection to this family anymore because of a boundary they'd put in place.
Yeah.
Who are you to ring them 6, 7 times and offer all these, solutions to their no's?
Yeah, it's crazy. Crazy. All right. I reckon we're done. Are we done?
I think so.
Okay. We didn't really talk about social media and posting children online and consent, but we don't have to talk. Because really, at the end of the day, it's around your own autonomy as a parent, and you make the decision as to what you post and what you don't post. And I think there's a lot of influencers that kind of make it their bread and butter to talk about that. And I think let's just leave it to them.
I would agree.
All right. Okay. Let me get my little...
Hopefully this conversation has given you something to think about, and maybe some new language, or reinforce the language you're already using.
Oh my goodness, if you can just use that language, public versus private parenting, I think the more of us that use that language, the better, because it'll become something that is accepted.
Yes.
In terms of, describing the role of particularly a foster parent. Well, that brings us to the end of another episode of Relational Practice, a social work podcast.
To ensure you're always in the loop, please follow our podcast. Your subscription and social media engagement helps us build our community and make these conversations more accessible to other practitioners in the field.
That's true.
Thanks for tuning in. We hope the start of 2026 has been kind to you, and we will see you soon. Until then, stay safe and remember to always practice relationally.
See you later. Bye, guys.
But maybe someday